Hey, it's day 17 of my journey towards writing my first fantasy novel. And yeah, I am not in my winter office right now. I'm not at my desk, but it doesn't mean that I'm not working on my novel. Today, I actually want to share with you that I'm applying something I learned from the great Brandon Sanderson himself. I was watching one of his tutorials. He used to teach, and I think he still does, to teach writing or creative writing at a university. And a lot of his teachings are still available online. In fact, I think I heard him say that he's actually working on re-editing them or maybe re-recording them. Most of these tutorials are about 5-6 years old, but they're fantastic. There's so much advice there. And because he's teaching students who still are in the process of learning how to write, it is extremely applicable to the phase that I am currently in as an aspiring fantasy writer. So this morning I saw a video in which he shared a few tips for beginning fantasy writers. And I was struck by one example or one tip that he gave. And that was, most people are not able to spend an entire day working on their novel because they have a life. They have a family, they have a job. And so it is very hard to spend more than a couple of hours, if you can find a couple of hours every day, on your novel. But there are different ways in which you can make progress on your writing, even if you're not sitting at a desk like I am doing right now. And he said one of the ways in which you can immediately improve your writing and also the speed of your writing is by using time that you have, that you're already doing something else. Let's say cleaning the house, doing the dishes, that sort of stuff, or commuting, or you're going on a walk, you walk your dog. Those are great times, he said, to think about your next chapter, to think about your character development, to develop ideas that once you sit down, the only thing you need to do is to write it down. And he tells the story of how that actually helped him write when he was a beginning writer, and look where he's now. So I thought, you know what, let me try that out right away. I always go on a walk after lunchtime. And usually I spend that time recording podcasts. I have a Story Secrets podcast that I record on Monday, and that is recorded during one of those walks. I take about an hour, I talk about 5 different topics, and I cut that up into short episodes that I can then program or schedule every day. But today I'm actually thinking about the phase that I'm currently in. And yesterday I told you that I was in, it's kind of like phase 0 of the writing process, where I'm plotting my novel. I'm outlining the story, and I try to do that as in as detailed a way as possible. But so I already did a little bit of writing this morning at my desk. But at one point I got stuck because I didn't feel good about what I had come up with for the first part of the book. Remember, and if you're new to the series, I will summarize it. This is about Tim and Alara. They both are novices at a monastery. They dream of bigger things in their lives, but they feel that their future is blocked for multiple reasons. And then my initial idea was to start the story with them going on a pilgrimage with the other monks, and then something dramatic happens, and that it constitutes the call for adventure. The thing is, it still felt a bit like it's too much all at the same time in the beginning. What you want is to show how my main characters not only journey in real life, but you want to share the story of the journey of their lives, how this story is going to change who they are. It's about growth. It's about evolution. That is what makes us relate to the protagonists, is if they resemble our journey in life. And I felt that starting with that pilgrimage, it skips kind of the point of departure. What you want to do first is to establish what their normal life looks like, where they're still stuck. This is if you compare this to Star Wars, it's the Luke Skywalker on Tatooine phase, where he's stuck, he needs to help his uncle, and yeah, he has got big dreams. So this is another thing that I learned from Brandon Sanderson and also from other experienced writers is your characters need to have a want. They need to have needs. And what they want might not actually be what they need. And it's all about the story being a whole sequence of obstacles to them reaching what they want, what they need. And so, and then the payoff at the end is that they actually reach what they want, what they needed. And but it might be different from what they initially thought it would be. But that makes their journey relatable and compelling. And if it's just an observer, it's one of the mistakes that a lot of beginning writers make. This is not according to me, because I'm a beginning writer, and I was maybe actually already on my way to making the same mistake, but this is what Sanderson teaches. The worst thing you can do for your main protagonist is to create an observer who actually has no wants and no needs, and is just describing what other characters around him are doing. It is, to use another example, is the Tintin problem. You may be familiar with this Belgian, so European comic book series, where Tintin is a young reporter. He's got a white dog, and he goes on lots of adventures. But Tintin himself is the most bland character that you can imagine, even the way he dresses. It's just such a generic young man. But what makes the story so compelling is that the characters around him are extremely interesting and flawed. Humor. So you've got Captain Haddock, and you've got this weird professor, and the twin detectives, and all these the crazy opera singer, and that makes the story interesting. But Tintin himself doesn't change. He's just the same guy in every story, and so he's the least interesting character. I don't want to make that mistake, and so the reason that I'm walking here in the woods is to create some time to think about what motivates my main characters. And I think I came up with a much better premise. Instead of starting during this pilgrimage, I want to start actually at the monastery. So we will see him doing very mundane tasks. I think that he might actually be a shepherd, like St. Patrick. After all, this is in Ireland. So he needs to take care of the cattle, which is kind of it's one of the low-level tasks, you could say. It's not what every monk enters the monastery for. And what is what he wants? He wants to be acknowledged. He wants to be like the scribes, these high-level monks. They are selected in a procedure every year by the abbot. But they need to have a lot of talent, because they're going to work on the Codex Fabulae. And they will obviously have to create. They have to copy texts. They have to create illustrations, and of course, there's this whole secrecy around it. This might be very exciting. Nobody knows, because only if you're part of the scribes, you know what's going to happen in that tower where they work every day. And so Tim, at first, only sees them in the morning, very early in the morning, when all the monks are together for prayer. And then he sees how these scribes go up the stairs and disappear in that tower, only to return at the end of the day. Plus, here's another thing that Tim might aspire to. These scribes are all young, because you need good eyes and you need stamina to work all day long on copying texts and making illustrations. This is, by the way, based on real historical information that I've been able to find. But as these scribes eventually grow older, they get a different job, and that is they actually are sent out as the story mages. So they become, from scribes, they turn into story mages, and their job then is to go on adventures. They can go visit all these towns and help people. And Tim is like, man, I'm stuck here with these sheep, and I want to travel. I want to go out and have adventures. So that creates a very relatable aspiration. For Alara, she's in a similar situation. She has left her family because she was frustrated by the fact that she was in a very abusive situation, and just didn't have her own freedom. And she felt that if I enter this religious order, I will finally be free and out of reach of my family. But then she actually ends up in let's say, a part of the order that is just taking care of the food and just the tasks that in those days were seen as feminine jobs. And she too, like Tim, aspires so much more in her life, but she feels like she's now again in a similar relationship, in a similar situation as she was before she entered the monastery. So she too dreams of having an adventurous life. Still need to kind of flesh that out a little bit more for Alara, but anyway, the two of them are kind of stuck in a situation where they don't want to be, but they also see what they think is going to solve their problems, and that is to become part of the scribes. Maybe Alara too just loves to get the life that she sees these male religious young men all get. So that's establishing their want, and it is also what I can even do is to develop a little bit more that Tim, for instance, is really trying to apply for that position, but he has flaws, very serious flaws. One of which is his constant need for affirmation. His inner voice is very negative about himself. He always tells himself that he's not good enough. But he's constantly dreaming about things, but he can't focus. He never follows up on what he dreams of, etc. So he's kind of like stuck, and he misses the test, and so he's super disappointed. And then Alara too, I don't know, maybe she too aspires to, or maybe I'll save that for later, but she too is going to be rejected. The abbot is actually the one who decides, and he's not a nice guy. He's very harsh, very merciless almost. And I wrote a note next to that this morning, and I said, you know what? What if the abbot is actually also part of the influx? He's a secret infiltrant, and he's put there in that position to see if he can help the evil mages to obtain access to the codex. Anyway, so that's like I'm creating some more tension, I think, in the situation. So the abbot is not a nice guy, and then they can go on this pilgrimage. And I was thinking, I'm going to ditch that entire idea of them walking through the forest and finding that magical cone or whatever it is. That felt so artificial and actually quite boring. Instead, I'm going to have the both of them fall behind, and so they arrive at the ceremony, this big the reading of the codex, when the spell is already cast and everybody is inside the story, and they observe it from the outside because they are outside of the range of the story spell, and that's when they see the attack. That is the first attack is going to happen there. So it's the first attempt of the story mages to get hold of the codex, and maybe the abbot actually told them where the pilgrimage would take place this year. Maybe it's in a different secret location every year. I don't know. But anyway, they observe from a distance that the animals are, and this is part of, I think I explained that right about the mythological animals. So the story mages all have a pet, and the pet is actually a defender. This is also something I developed already in some notes. So the pet stays in its normal shape outside of the story spell, but inside the story they become these big creatures like the rainbow spewing lion. And if they are attacked in real life or lured away, then they are also missing in action inside the story spell. But anyway, so Alara and Tim see the attack. They somehow ward off, or they interrupt, or whatever, but they save the day. And that is already where they meet for Tivus. And because I also have to develop the wants and the needs of this And so I want them to meet Fortivus at a very early. So this is the guy who actually does the evil things in the prologue, and so my idea is that Fortivus is actually pretending to be wanting to enter the order. He too wants to become a novice, and he befriends Alara and Tim so that they can help him get to the tower. So it's even more betrayal. It's even more like double play and like a spy inside their midst. And obviously, ultimately, his story arc is that he's going to befriend Tim and Alara and is going to convert. So, but anyway, I introduce him already here, which creates immediately an interesting trio where I can. So this is without using Ethan, the angel. He comes into play later, and this is because of an idea that one of you actually gave me in the comments. So Fortivus actually is already starting his corruptive behavior because he immediately identifies the wants and the needs of Alara and Tim and says, well, what if we just, you have a right to get access to that tower. What if we go there and we just find a way in, and then we will just steal some books and study for ourselves? And Tim and Alara are like, yeah, actually, why not? Let's do that. And that is when the attack happens. The book is stolen. And here is where I'm going to introduce Ethan. And what happens is that Ethan takes possession of Fortivus during the attack. And so makes him even more evil and more dangerous. So, and now Fortivus is actually struggling with this, like, what? I'm taking over, someone is taking me over. And so you have this, like, then it can really become like Venom, right? Where he has this ongoing conversation with an angel who, too, is working for the bad guys. But that makes Fortivus even more dangerous. Something like that. I'm not entirely sure of that because I liked Ethan as an individual character. But on the other hand, I'm thinking this might be better. This is as if instead of Ron, one of the three in the Harry Potter stories would have been Malfoy. But Malfoy posing as Ron, something like that. Anyway, let me know what you think. This is what I came up with. I've now outlined about 5 chapters. And so I still am nowhere because I have to outline 35 more. But at least I'm kind of like eyeballing about 40 chapters, which means 40 story beats. And to a certain extent, every chapter can have multiple scenes, obviously. But I think this is more solid than what I had. And me walking around here outside, it does help. And what I just shared with you, whenever I sit back at my computer, I will type that in and that will inform the story even more. So anyway, that's how I try to apply this lesson from Brandon Sanderson. Let me know what you think. If you have any additional ideas, I'd love to read them in the comments. Thanks for watching. I'll talk to you soon.